Hello, this is Sculpt January number 17, and this time it was bored, the expression. So I quite like doing caricatures, so I thought I'd do another one, a different shape, and try and make him look bored. In fact, by the end he didn't really look that bored, unfortunately, so I probably should have spent a bit more time on the expression. I was more thinking about the actual facial features and figuring out how to get them looking right, and then by the end of it I forgot the actual expression itself. But it's supposed to be sort of heavy eyelids, mouth slightly open, and a bit bored. You can see I was using the masking tool there. I quite like the masking tool now. I didn't really use it much before, but this is what it's all about, trying things out and experimenting with new workflows and techniques. So well worth doing. Try something new each time you sculpt. So as per usual, I am on constant detail with the Dyn Topo. I do really prefer that. I did try relative detail for a little while, but I'm preferring the constant detail. And it does depend on what size your model is, but I started around 20 and went up to about 60 in the end. But I stay on 20 for a long time, that sort of first level, and you can really see all the subdivisions around my mesh. But it's important to stay there for a while to get your mesh in the right shape before going to the detailed work. The detailed work is where all the fun is, but make sure you've got that basic shape, otherwise you'll struggle and your work flow will be much slower if you go too detailed too quickly. Also, I've got symmetry turned on at the moment, and it's important to turn symmetry off later on when you get to the detail and make your mess asymmetrical. It gives it much more character and much more interest. For some reason I was struggling with the ears. It took me a little while to get those right, and I'm not really sure whether they're that great by the end of it. Ears are quite a tough one for some reason. They're just one of those things that I find tricky. I did try doing the eyes without placing a sphere in there, but it's just a bit easier to quickly put a sphere in and then build up the eyelids around that sphere. Then you know you've got roughly the right angle of the eyes and sockets. This character's got very strange eyes, so it's a little bit tricky with the eyelids. And here I am, I've turned symmetry off to give him that sort of character. I probably should have gone much further with that. I suppose I am conscious of time at this point, and I'm trying to do this fairly quickly because this one's a lunch hour type one. It took about 2.5 hours in total, I think. So a bit of time in my lunch hour, a bit of time before work, and a bit of time after. Now it's tricky, this one. When you're doing caricature sort of faces, it's tricky to get that things like the mouths and eyes right because they're so distorted from normal eyes. But you've got to try and keep the basic shapes in mind. They're a tough thing to do really, but they're really good fun. That's one thing that I'd like to develop more, is an actual style. I've seen some really nice work on Sculpt January where people have got an obvious style and they're really good at it. And it does make their models look fantastic. But if you're a beginner, then I would suggest personally sticking to just getting the basic shapes right, and then once you've got that, then move on to things like caricatures. I didn't like my eyebrows in the end, they weren't that great, but I thought I'd experiment and at least try something different, so they're a bit sort of fluffy. But again, I didn't want to spend too much time on the model today. So I did some really basic eyes with cylinders to start off with, and then I changed that to a sort of half circle type shape later on. I didn't show the baking this time because that's a process which I've shown a lot, but I've shown a bit of the texturing setup here with my ambient occlusion at the top, cavity in the middle, and normals at the bottom into the principal shader. And I'm using mixed shaders to mix them together. This time I use subsurface scattering, and it gives it that sort of funny, almost see-through effect. A bit like skin, although I've exaggerated it a bit. And I use my 3-point lighting as usual. They're all in a line there, and you can see them pointing different directions. And I usually add a bit of colour to each one, just to give the characters an interesting look. It makes your textures come alive just that little bit more. And there we have it, number 17, bored. Hopefully he looks a little bit bored. He looks a bit more confused than bored, but it was good fun. Thanks again for all the comments, I'm really appreciating them. The sketchfab store has opened up today, so all my models are on sketchfab. I haven't put many of them up for sale yet, but if you want to support me, then you can go along there and buy one of my really cheap models. I've got some on there for $1 and $2, so that'd be great. But not to worry, I'm just happy that people are getting involved and chatting to me on the stream. That's brilliant. So links in the description, and I'll see you there.